1, 2, 3. Hey, we nailed it that time. It's only the second try.
You dum-dum.
I am a dum-dum. Here we go. Hello and welcome into the Section 109 podcast from Studio Breezy. We got Bobble Juan, Matthew, Breezy. Mix and Toby are here somewhere, but I gave them a little something special, so hopefully they won't bother us. Gave them some little treats. But we're here with a distinguished guest, head coach of the men's team and sporting director, Rod Underwood.
Hey guys, what's up?
How you doing, Rod?
Good.
Thank you for joining us today. Right off the bat, last time we talked about your passion and love for reading, so I was wondering if you've read any great books lately.
Oh my gosh. There's so many.
Anything you would recommend to we have a lot of regular folks that listen to this podcast, but I think they're mostly big soccer nerds. You got anything in that vein?
Yeah, I read, I just read a data book. What's the name of the book? I can't even remember. Sitting right on my mantle. What's the name of the book?
Maybe we'll put it in the show notes for folks.
Yeah,
we'll follow up with you, and then we'll put it in the show notes.
I can't remember.
But it's a book about soccer data and soccer analytics?
Yeah, soccer analytics, yeah.
Well, that will be right up the alley for about 6 of our listeners.
I mean, I might,
and Matthew and I included.
If you text me a picture of it later tonight, I might buy it immediately on Amazon.
You're also looking very good today. Coordinated blue on blue on blue. Got that limited edition Chattahooligan hoodie.
Yes, I like it. It's very nice.
Good. I'm glad you like it. We like it as well. I actually don't have that newer version. I only have the old one. My wife has that one. I might need to get that one. It's stretchier. My old one is like the old hoodie fabric, which is fine, but it's not quite the same. And then you've been running?
Every day.
How many miles did you run last week as an example?
I try to do a minimum of like 40 a week. So it varies, and on a crazy week, it might be 70.
You had said that you were at 70 last year we had this conversation.
Well, I'm a year older too, so it's a little bit harder.
Now, are you at 7? I know you said you use a training plan, but are sometimes you at 70 because it's a stressful week? Like, does that ever happen?
I love running, so it's like I can just like go running and forget where I am. That people think that's crazy, but I can just like lose where I'm going and just go.
I can tell you, he doesn't think it's crazy. I do, because I am not a runner. But that guy,
I mean, I think it's crazy now, but I remember what that feeling was like. That does not exist anymore for me.
he still runs just a little bit. Goes on a jog every now and then.
A jog every now and then.
And I know you were living in the walking distance to Southside Pizza, and I've seen you in that. How many times a week do you get Southside Pizza, and how do you not make it 7 times a week?
Yeah, no,
they're closed on Monday.
It's right there. It's right there. Yeah, I mean, I'm literally 2 blocks. So right there, and then that neighborhood right behind it.
Yeah.
I'm right in that neighborhood. Yeah.
How do you not go there every night?
My wife tells me not to go. Spend money.
Not to spend the money. And I would imagine you're running enough probably to burn off the carbs, but I would imagine if you ate pizza every night, you might not feel it.
Yeah, it'd be hard to eat pizza every night. Now, Chris will eat pizza every night. Chris will eat pizza all meals of the day.
I'll have to get I didn't realize he was such a I am also a pizza. I have to keep myself, we're about 7 minutes from there right now, and I have to keep whenever we get pizza. In fact, Ella's getting it tomorrow. She's having some of her friends over to play cards, and they are getting Southside Pizza. Whenever, I think now that we've moved into this house, I think 3/4 of our order in meals or pickup meals are Southside Pizza.
Makes sense.
It's just my spot. And then I guess the last question we have before we kind of get into some of the league-specific stuff and looking back at last year and whatever else is, are there any coaches or teams in world soccer you've been looking at this year?
Well, I mean, for me, I watch way too much soccer in the sense
Same.
of like, but I watch very few teams I try to watch after the score is there so I don't get emotionally involved. So I can just learn from the game. So Barca and City are the only 2 teams that I will say that I watch for the entertainment.
Did you watch the game yesterday, Chelsea, Manchester City?
I didn't.
I watched it after. I didn't see it.
I'm gonna
live.
watch it. Yeah, I gotta watch it.
Do
Yeah.
you know the result already?
I know the result. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I've heard. Yeah.
I watched the last 15 minutes this morning. I just had thrown it on and was like cleaning the house and doing all these things, and then it's an enthralling game.
Yeah,
it's an enthralling game. And Pochettino is back. Sorry, Matthew.
Well,
He is back.
no, listen, like English football is better for having Pochettino back in the league. And the fact that he's at Chelsea is, for a Spurs fan, is, I guess, annoying. But also, we made the decision not even to talk to him again, right? And we got Postecoglou,
Who's done a good job.
who's done number one, a good job, and number two, like he's an interesting one for his style of play, because when he was hired at Spurs, co-host Smitty was all down the rabbit holes and the YouTube videos watching and whatever, and so I was like, hey, like what kind of soccer does he like to play? And he's like, did you watch CFC this weekend? I was like, yeah, I was there, man. And he's like, it's literally that. The kind of W and build up and 4 across and one box to box, midfielder, one like regular 10 in the hole doing stuff like wide mid. It was interesting. And that's been a really fascinating thing to watch two teams play sometimes on the same day in the same sort of style.
Have you watched much Spurs?
I've watched one game this year, maybe. And I watched because I wanted to, everyone's talking about what he's doing, what he's doing. So I'm like, okay, well, let's see what he's doing. And I'll watch, I'll now the off season, I'll watch more. I'll go back and watch games now that the off season is a good way to learn, good way to look at.
I mean, don't watch what he's doing now because he just lost like 2 of his starters. But
Well,
watch what he's already done.
Yeah.
The injury bug bit them hard.
The first 10 games are interesting. I think interesting to watch, especially, again, there was a couple games against Brentford at the beginning of the season, Sheffield United, where it's just full on, breaking down a bunkered team.
Yeah.
And then you get some of the more open game, like the Arsenal game was a little bit more open. And one other one I'm forgetting. And those were the ones, like it's exciting to be a Spurs fan, number one. Although I did not watch the Chelsea game because it came right after, the Monday after our semifinal loss. And I just swore it off. It's like, nope, I'm doing literally anything else. And that worked out for me, actually, personally.
Yeah. So first league championship in team history, first regular season, and a national league. We use that. First pro championship. Matthew has written down here, and we're going to argue during this podcast about this. He keeps writing down 2 losses. We had 4.
No, it was 2.
He says draw, then you advance. But
that's how it works.
Anyway, pretty good season.
Yeah, I mean, the goal was to get better in a lot of statistical categories, and we did. The goal was to change the profile of positions. We did. I mean, the number one was to try to change the profile and goal, and then find more players that fit even closer to what we wanted to do. So we feel very good about that in that regard. And, it's really a crazy feeling because it's like, from day one to the last day of the regular season, we control the league. I mean, we control the league. So that's, you had some dips here and there and those kind of things. But I think overall, I mean, in terms of start to finish, we really can't complain. Yeah,
I would agree with that. I mean, we're a week out from the semifinal, so just number one, how you feeling, personally, emotionally?
Well, it's really hard to swallow because you look at the team that won, and I don't believe we gave up a goal against them all year.
Correct.
And they would say that, some games were lucky, but it's whatever. At the end of the day, they won, so give them all the credit. They won, they did it, they figured it out, and they got it done. So take nothing away from what they did. But going into that game, we said we wanted to increase our volume of shots, and we wanted to increase our expected goals, and we did that. So we trained for what you saw, besides putting the ball in the back of the net. We put ourselves in the position to score a lot of goals, and that's what we wanted to do because we felt like toward the end of the season we weren't creating enough chances. And, I mean, I think our expected goals was 3.4. Theirs was 0.3. So I don't know, right? It's just one of those things.
So I have a slight tangent here from Zach Taylor. I said if you had to pick any player in the world in world football, and then I want to come back to maybe what we needed besides the ball going in. But if you had any player in the world in world football to build a team around, who would it be?
Messi.
Why?
There's nobody better. I mean, for me,
even at his age now.
Even at his age now. I think they're better players than Messi now, but there is no player that has more influence on the teammates, which makes the team better. Because when you look at Messi, right, there's always you look at certain players, look at Zidane or all the way back to Platini or those types of players, they made everyone else better. If you take American sports, Michael Jordan makes everyone better in his day. You know, there's other players in other sports, right, that make. So for me, when you build around a player, they make everyone better where multiple players can win games on a regular basis. But some players are just players. They can win the game by themselves. Like Cristiano Ronaldo, great goal scorer. He can win the game for you most times he steps on the field. But he's having an off day. He hasn't made other people around him to have the confidence and the ability to win games without him being on the level that he needs to be on. And that's why Messi for me is, I mean, look, Diego Maradona, love. Pelé, love. All these guys that are in there that people talk about. There's players in there that I would talk about that aren't in that conversation. But for me, because even going into the World Cup, I was debating that. I was debating, is Messi really the best? Is he really the best ever? But what was so unique for me about the World Cup is every single player on that team, they sacrificed everything for Messi to win. They cared nothing about what they got. They cared nothing if they got any publicity. All they wanted to do was do whatever it takes for Messi to win. And that was clear day in and day out every single time. And that's what I mean by just like he galvanized that team. And that's like, for me, is really special.
Yeah, I love it. It's beautiful. Before talking more about the finals, I'm sure we will. We were absolutely bitten by the injury bug this year, I think. Do you think that's the universe evening out last year's health? Because we stay pretty healthy. Or is it something maybe we did differently this year? Did we had practiced too much on turf? Do you have an idea of what happened between? Because it was just so different. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the injuries, you look at Ethan's injury, and it was just a fluke injury. It didn't matter if it was on turf or grass. Taylor's injury, I mean, he got injured on grass. LA was something he's dealt with for a while, and he couldn't go anymore with that. And then, who else was there?
Partita.
Oh, yeah. Partita, yeah, that's right.
Every right back on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, he came in super excited for him, and he started having some problems in his groin area. So the doctor shut him down for preseason. And it's Wednesday before the first game or some game. I can't remember which game it was. If he had a good session that day, he was going to be available for the roster on Saturday. And he tore his ACL.
This was right before the Gold Star game because he played 30 minutes for the last exhibition game.
Yeah. So he tore his ACL. And it's like, wow. I mean, we were maybe halfway through the training or toward the end of the training, so we're almost done. And it was just, but give the guy credit. I mean, I thought it was over, but he came back the last 3 weeks. He was training with us.
How close was he from being ready for
he's
being on
still
the
a
bench?
ways away, but he's only like 6 months, 7 months, and he was back in training, and with an ACL, which is like all props to the kid.
It's
man.
unheard of, almost.
Yeah, he was really like. I had written him off because it's like there's no way he's gonna come back with this, but his mentality was special. So good for him. It was really, really good for him. But I mean the injuries.
Colin as well. That was a contact injury.
Yeah, Colin. Yeah, it was the back thing and the ankle.
Oh, I think it's brakes on a truck that's going. Sorry, I could hear that. I was like, what is that whining sound? I'm surprised the dogs weren't barking.
I thought Mix was like pushing a dog bowl very, very slowly across the floor.
Sorry, back to Colin's injury.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had a tough year, I thought, in terms of injuries.
He had a couple. He had one at the beginning.
Yeah,
one.
he had his back and then his ankle, but he never gave up, right? He focused, he pushed, and that's one thing about Colin. Colin is really a guy that just when he gets focused, he's going, and he just made sure he put a timeline on for himself, and he said, "I'm going to be back by this time," and he pushed and he got there. But I think more so than the injuries, how the team managed the injuries, right? Because let's be honest, Taylor in our first 14 games, he was directly involved in 7 or 8 of those, and we lose that. I mean, but we brought in Jesus, who was a really big pickup for us, and so he did well. Sebastian stepped in and really, he was brought in just to give us depth. That if we needed someone to spell someone, that was going to be his role, and he played critical minutes.
Yeah.
So you look at those things, and obviously it helps that guys like Alex and Richard so durable.
Yeah.
Nags for the most part was really durable. Jesus coming in was really durable. So they put up JP ton of minutes, right? I mean, he might have played the most minutes of everybody this year.
Aiden played the most.
Aiden played the most. Okay.
No, actually not. With
Really?
the 45 minutes that Aiden set out against Savannah in the second half.
Is it JP?
For load management, I think gives it to, in the league specifically, you're at 21:43 for JP. You're at 21:48 for Richard.
Okay. Wow, Richard. Okay. That guy, man, he keeps going.
And that's because the only time he sat was in the league at all. I think was
Maryland, right?
one game where you pulled him like 5, 10, 15, whatever it was minutes to go in the game.
I see. I missed
because he was pretty banged up or something like that.
I remember having this conversation last year where we were like end of the season. And you were like, "Yeah, we're hoping Richard doesn't have to, play so many minutes and put so many miles." And we do. I think the quote was something to the effect of like, we played him in this game and we had intended to play him for like 40 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever it was, small amount, and he ended up playing 80 minutes or whatever because Richard just does that. He makes himself indispensable, and
Yeah, it would have been Aiden had he not been pulled for the second half of Savannah. I have a stat that we'll talk about a little bit later, but first 5 games of the season, we scored 2.8 goals per game. That includes 1 against Birmingham and 1 against Flower City when Nags was sitting to rest up for Birmingham. And then the final 22 games, we threw out the Independent Cup. Average goals per game, 1.52. And I think
some of the narrative of this season, is our offense with and without Taylor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's a small sample size. To be clear, 5 games is not fair, but like there's something there, right?
He had a different mentality when he came in this year. He was really on his game. He was really focused about doing his thing. And, yeah, I mean, Taylor's a high-level player, bottom line.
Yeah.
And a guy you picked out of Maryland that nobody else wanted.
Yeah, he's a high-level player. I have a lot of respect for Taylor, a lot of belief in him that, I mean, I don't even think he's kind of touched where he could actually take his level to.
How did you know? Because you picked him out when no one else did. Because Maryland cut him.
Yeah.
Which is the most insane. He was the best winger in the league, I would say. I would argue. Maybe Darwin would have a shot at it too the 2 years or last year. But like, how did you know?
I watched 5 minutes. Literally. We were getting to the end of the roster. And like, we need someone that could be a 9 and a winger kind of combined. And he was like, I watched the video and he was doing things that you knew that no one had shown him, and looked like he just was playing freely and expressing himself in his own personal way. And I was like, yeah, that's the guy. But I look for that in most players, and that's why it takes me so long to find players, because I'm not interested in the guy that does like what everybody else can do. Nor am I interested in the guy that you can see as forced trying to be different. So those are things that, and Chris and Omar and Jordan and those guys, they get frustrated. Like, you don't like anybody. I
do. They're going through tape and bringing you guys, and you're like, no.
Yeah. I think that they, but that's just, I mean, and I'll just be patient, right? I'll just be patient and try not to rush, and sometimes get nervy because you're getting close to your needing sign a player, but you have to stick with it.
For anyone who doesn't know, how does that process work normally? Do you see the player first? Do Chris and somebody else see, like Chris and Omar see the player first? Like, actually, let's put it this way: if a player is getting sent to us, quote unquote, I know agents send out and players submit. How does that process normally work, and how far into the process, maybe it's the beginning, do you start seeing them?
It just depends, right? Because we all have connections, right? So the connection might send it to one of us, and then we all take a look and we say, yeah, that looks good, or no, that's not. And then and so it doesn't really matter. It's whoever, right? But typically, we have a whole process, right? So we look at the data.
Y-Scout mostly?
Yeah, Y-Scout mostly. We look at the data, and then we watch games. So like, I might watch a player 7 or 8 times, full games, before we even like make a decision. And we have conversation with every player. So we talk to every player individually. Sometimes it'll be always talk to the player by myself, just so that the coaches can do whatever ask whatever questions they want without my influence. And then from there, then we make a decision. Then we'll talk to coaches or get information from, someone outside of our circles, and not just the agent, obviously, but someone outside of our circles. And then we can hopefully make a decision. So it's a long process for us.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think I want to go into some sporting director related questions. You're not just the head coach of the men's first team; you're the sporting director for the club. But before I do that, I want to go off script for a second. It's a week before Thanksgiving, and the Breezies have a Christmas tree up, and I need to know your thoughts on that.
Well, Breezy,
I am ashamed.
My wife will be very happy, because ours is up at home.
I'm not. I am celebrating our loss. My wife essentially said, I said, we cannot put up the Christmas tree. You are being so extra. And she goes, basically like, I'm not, because we're going out of town around Thanksgiving. She's like, I'm not going to be free for the next couple weeks. I want to be here to enjoy our decorations. I'm not going to be up. And I was like, well, over my dead body are we putting this up? And then she was like, well, fine, you can just, and, basically. And I lost that one very quickly.
Yeah. So ours is up at home. They put it up this weekend.
Yeah, we put ours up yesterday. Or, well, Ella put it up, to be clear. I did all of the other things that weren't putting it up. Kind of, but no. Like, first of all, she doesn't need my help or want my help. She sent me to go get the tree from out of, like, it was in storage at, like, was a little storage area at a rental property, so it was in storage there. And then she sent me to, like, anyway, I did all of the things. While she put up the tree, I did everything else. I put things in storage. I moved chairs. I put things upstairs. I just did all these things, whatever made it easier for her to actually put up the Christmas tree. And that's actually when I had the Chelsea Tottenham game on.
No, Chelsea Man City.
Sorry, Chelsea Man City. You're right. Chelsea Man City.
Well, it looks really good. So
thanks, buddy. That would be, and we bought that. The one thing I am happy about is we bought that after Christmas last year, so we got that for, I don't remember what we paid, but if it's a $500 tree, we paid $150 or whatever. Yeah. Like it's that, like, and I don't remember what it was, but it's a lot less than whatever it was marked up to. Yeah. So I feel good about it. It's the first time we've opened it. I mean, we got it out of the package, cut it open.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I just realized that there's not a chance in hell that your wife listens to this, so I'll tell her.
You can tell her she's crazy for sure.
I'll tell her that it looks good, and also she's a little crazy.
She's a lot crazy, but what are we gonna do, right? She likes Christmas.
She does. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's talk about, we didn't see. I think we saw Hugo in one exhibition game this year. We saw Fabian a couple times during the season. We saw Gavin Castle once, which was really, really cool. Can you talk about the performance of some of the academy players that were with the squad during the season, and maybe just generally about connection between the academy and the first team?
Well, I mean, the academy is really important, and youth players are really important. They need to be given a chance to be in the environment. They need to be given a chance to really grow, right? Because if they're the best players playing with youth players, then they need to be pushed, right? And so that's what we try to do. I mean, Fabian could be a really good player. Just depends if Fabian wants to be a really good player. So that's I mean, he needs to own his own development. And that's what I tell young players. You need to own your own development. You need to take responsibility for that, because if you don't, you just can't rely on anyone else, because there's just no, at the professional level, there's just no time in a sense to say, okay, we got to motivate you to be better. There'll be other players out there that don't need motivation, so you work with those players. So, but overall, I mean, pleased with those guys. I mean, they were, Fabian, Hugo, they've been here since I've been here, so which is nice to see them come through. And Gavin, first time out. And, and you've got one player, youth player that, hopefully we get things done, and I think he probably potentially could contribute to the team next year.
Wow.
Guy out of the academy.
Yeah.
And I had also forgotten about some of the kind of the guest players from I think SSA.
That one dude with the excellent hair that was very electric.
That played, player that got some time in a couple of different matches this season.
Yeah, those guys have been great for us. I mean, obviously, they got their club season going on, and they live down in Atlanta, so it makes it harder to get them in and out. But look, obviously Atlanta's a big part of that, but there's a lot of players in this region. But Atlanta plays a big part in that because it's just such a melting pot, such an international city that there are a lot of people around and a lot of different cultures, and obviously what Atlanta United's done to build soccer there, and with U.S. Soccer moving there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You're going to see even more. So
U.S. Soccer is practically moving here. Like they're moving,
Yeah. Not exactly in Atlanta, probably.
Might be closer to here than it is Atlanta by the end of the day.
Bring it on.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I've heard where they're going to put it, it's definitely not in Atlanta. So,
kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Tough to get a spot in Atlanta.
Where do you think the academy, the CFC Academy right now is like how far away, I guess maybe is the question, is it able to or will it be able to regularly produce, I don't know, like half dozen players that can contribute in training every week and be a part of, because that's the goal, right? Every single year there's kind of 4 to 6 new ones ready to go. How far away are we?
I think we're a long ways away from that, because to be fair, most of our players come from our partner clubs, like North Georgia. We've had a couple kids from Rome that are in that sort of partnership program. So I think here the CFC Academy is a ways away, but I think we are going to be moving in the right direction. And I think that is the goal, is to have players come through, give them an opportunity so they have an option if they want to play pro right away, if they want to go to college, but help them, not make them, because I don't believe coaches make players, assist them and help them, come alongside them to give them more options so that they can go pro or they can go to college, whatever they choose to do.
Yeah. Breezy?
Matthew? So, Coach, Sporting Director Rod, I guess in this case, how much oversight and direction do you have, or how much influence do you have on the women's side?
I'm super involved.
So how are you? I'm not asking you to break any news. If you choose to break news on this podcast, that's wonderful. But we were 3-2-3 last year. How did you feel like the overall season went, and how are you thinking about kind of next season? I know we're not there yet, but we're starting to ramp up to.
Yeah, I think for us it is. It's an important part of the club. Number one, to have the women's program. I thought the season was a success. All things considered, where it started, the first year back, and then really started the season nicely. And then part of summer leagues, players leave, injuries happen, and it kind of affects things. So I think we're just looking to how do we improve on that? Obviously you want to improve on giving the players improving the experience, which I think the experience has already been good. But if you improve the experience, then they recommend the club to their friends, and hopefully their friends are on the same level or higher levels than them, so it improves the level. And And then, we want to make sure that on the field, right, can we be better? Can we win a few more games? And that's really kind of the focus. But making sure, though, that it's done in the right way. It's not forced. It's not in a way where, we got to have this. We got to do it now. Let's let it naturally, with assistance from us making the right decisions behind the scenes to make sure that it grows long term.
Have you set any goals for next year for the women's side?
Yeah, I think first off, right, we want to make sure that we win a few more games. You win a few more games, you make the playoffs, right? That will be something I think is important. Is it a must-have to make the playoffs? It's not a must-have to make the playoffs, especially
when only one team makes it right now.
Yeah, so it's definitely a say let's be in the conversation to make the playoffs all year, right? I think that's important to put in the context. Want to make sure that we continue to be a picture for other female players to see that this is a real opportunity, because we want to make sure that they see players and they see that they're growing, because that motivates those young players to say, yeah, I can do that someday. And then really have as many staff as coaching staff, office staff, working with, having, females working with the team. I think that's real important too, because I can go all day about Title IX. I think Title IX's taken jobs from women, but that's a different story. But I hopefully provide opportunity for more women to be seen in that environment.
Cool. Awesome. Slightly related on the academy side, not specific to women in this case, but I guess it could be for either side. What kind of impacts beyond men's first team do you see an MLS relationship happening, right? How do you see that affecting Chattanooga Football Club on the academy and women's sides, in addition to, obviously, the men's first side, which I think it's a little easier for us to know kind of what effects the men's side is going to have. The men's first team is going to be moving to a new professional league, but what are the other effects it'll have on the academy and women's team sides?
I think just, look, at the end of the day, right, look, I say this all the time. USL, I have a lot of respect for USL. USL has, look, I played in the league in 1990, right? So USL has been an integral part of growth of American soccer. And if anyone takes time to look at the history, they'll realize that league has been, and hopefully will continue to be, important, because all the leagues should be important, because they provide more jobs for office staff, more jobs for coaches, more jobs for players. And the only way we ultimately going to compete at the international level if those areas grow. But definitely directly toward MLS, it's a game changer. For men, women, it's a game changer. Academy, girls, boys, it's a game changer. It just really is. Because MLS right now is a very powerful entity in American sports. And they have caused other countries to take notice of what's happening at soccer in America.
And having us be a part of that is...
Well, that's a big deal, right? That's a big deal. And obviously having a little bit of experience going back in the early days of MLS when I was at Portland, we went from USL to MLS, and I had a little bit of a role in that, not too much. But I would say that having that experience and being there in those years, being involved, I felt like it was an important next step for us, right? And to be fair, I think that in the beginning, I was thinking, okay, USL Championship, USL 1, fit our model of what we want to do for our fans and what we want to do for the city. But once I delved deeper into looking at MLS, I thought MLS fit that mold too, because we still can, as an independent club, we still can do it however we want. Because as long as they keep no age limits, we're fine. But I think if it has to be, okay, you can only be up to so up to a certain age, and I think that would handicap us.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely talk more about MLS and roster stuff a little bit later in the podcast. There are a lot of mailbag questions. Let's just go ahead and do it now. Our overall record in games that mattered this season was 17 wins, 9 draws, and 2 losses.
Or 17-7-4.
I'm gonna. Your asterisk is wrong.
There's 2 asterisks, actually. There's one on the 9 and one on the 2. But Matthew wrote this show, Doc.
Yeah, and when I do the work, I get the spoils here. So, 9 draws, 2 losses. We scored 49 goals. We gave up 16 goals. Last year on this podcast, when we had you on, we scored 50 goals.
And allowed 25.
And including the Independent Cup. And we allowed 25.
Taking away the 6 that Atlanta scored against us, because we chose to include that in the wins and losses from last year, but not in the goals we allowed because we faced no one else of any sort of comp. And then this year, of course, we went out and tied them the preseason 3-3. So maybe we should have included it last year.
Well, but if we include it, like, we scored from year to year the same amount of goals, basically, but we essentially gave up half the amount of goals.
If you go to 31, yeah, or even if you go to 25, 16 is still a massive departure.
And my I guess my opening question here is, and Breezy asked you this midway through the season: did you really set out to build a defensive juggernaut?
I never set out to build a defensive juggernaut, but I find myself, but I am a defensive type coach, but because of the offense, not because we're going to build the structure back. But the 2 things that we wanted to do: we wanted to change the profile in goal, and we wanted to be better at center back. And we clearly were better at both. So that was like the starting point, right? That was the starting point, that we wanted to improve in those areas. And to be fair, we wanted more size in the back, which we got, especially when Colin was healthy, right? It gave us a lot more size in the back. And so that was things that we went out to change. And those were definitely those were game changers, for sure.
Do you know that CFC 2023 is the best defense in terms of goals allowed
per game
in NISA history?
Oh, wow, really?
Goals per game.
Well,
better than Detroit 2021.
Well, that's surprising. I thought they'd lead everything in defense.
I know.
They actually have the best. So I went back through and did all this in terms of purely like goals allowed average, goals scored average.
We did a per game average because it's the easiest to compare.
Detroit's offense in 2021 was actually the best ever in the league. Our 2022 was better, or was number 2, and then our 2023 was number 3.
Okay.
But yeah, we actually have the best. We had the best defense in the league.
Well, good. That's happy. It makes me happy.
It's a good record. Well, let's go. We're going to go on a little season review here. We'll do it quick. But Matthew kind of titled this, and I think I agree, and I'd love it's a little bit of your kind of thoughts on what was going on this time of the year. So we have chapter 1. We had Matthew's in a wonderful edit here to make it Taylor Cooking Gray. But you had Gold Star 3-0, at Des Moines 4-1, at Albion 5-0, Flower City at home 1-0, then Birmingham 1-1 away. That's 14 goals conceded in 5 games. 14 goals scored in 5 games. That's 2.8 goals per game. And then 2 goals conceded in 5 games, which is only 0.4. We only conceded, by the way, in the Open Cup. We hadn't conceded a league goal up into that. How were you feeling in that little period of time? Did you feel like oh my God, we're on fire? Or were you going, this is gonna, because something you told us last year on the podcast, and one of the reasons I'm asking this question is last year we were like, man, we were on fire during this, and it was a section where we scored a bunch of goals, and you were like, we were scoring 50% of our shots, so we weren't thinking the same way you were thinking. Like, what were you thinking during this period?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, right, I think, if I kind of recollect, I think we were getting goals from a lot of different places. I don't think we were just getting them from 1 or 2 places. I think we're getting goals from a lot of different places. I believe Toley scored in that time on a header.
Mumu scored 2 against Gold Star.
Yeah.
The only constant was Taylor Gray was involved in almost every goal.
Yeah.
as you pointed out earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
I went back and checked from these 5 games. He had 7 goal contributions, goal, assist, hockey assist, and that's penalizing him for Alex McGrath not finishing against Albion,
which Albion
which
still
we
got
made fun of him so many times for.
in person, so no one thinks we were talking behind his back. So were you guys pretty high during that period? Like, were the offenses clicking, or were you maybe a little? Because I think Matthew and I were like, "Holy moly, the offense is good."
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what we were thinking. We were just enjoying it, and just like just trying to be better, trying to do more. Because we came into the season, I think we wanted to dominate everything, everything about the league, every whatever category, whatever you want to think of, we wanted to do, and that was just like there was that. So I think from that perspective, I think we were really just was focused and tuned in, but also we had a very good preseason. Mm-hmm. You know, we played Birmingham, we played Atlanta, we played Memphis, we played Knoxville, we played Huntsville, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think we had one game in preseason that I would say we came into the game thinking we should have won, and we lost it. I think that college team.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, that was really like important, and I think that had a lot to do with how we started the season. But in terms of scoring goals, yeah, I mean that was great stuff, and it's really easy to think that it won't stop, but you know it did.
Yeah, I mean, like, so the last game in this chapter is at Birmingham, and it's the game where Taylor gets hurt, and you know is not available again until the very, very end of the season. We move into chapter 2, and we titled this "Learning to Grind" because it's Michigan 0-0 on the road right after the Birmingham Open Cup game. It's Savannah 1-1, Flower City 1-0 that no one saw, Albion 2-0 at home, and then the 2 games with Maryland back to back, 1-0 at home, and then the 2-1 away. And this was a really interesting period because we scored 8 goals in 6 games, which is a 1.33 average. We only conceded 2, which is nice, 0.33. And we won. We won 4 of these games. We lost, or we didn't lose any, and then we drew 2.
Yeah.
Which is like on the bounce, incredibly good. Like that's what you want.
Yeah.
But they felt really grindy.
Yeah, I mean, like the offense was pretty much ground to a halt, absent like some moments of magic,
and absent the Maryland game where we went in and imposed our will for 10 minutes and just completely just took them to town. And then but the rest of this is like, you know,
absent like, you know, a moment of magic on the offensive side. Like we're talking about like, you know, 5 draws or something like that. What was that period like? Obviously we're dealing with, you know, figuring out how to create without Taylor a bit.
Yeah, that was, I mean, look, when Taylor went down and couldn't play, I said that was going to be a problem. A lot of other people didn't say so, but I felt that was going to be a problem just because he was contributing. And yeah, he was over, you know, he was probably playing at a level that we had never personally seen. And so it felt like maybe he was overachieving a little bit. But I always said, well, take the overachieving as long as you can. So that's just like what it is, right? But that was just part of the growth of the team in the sense of there's a lot of those games in the previous year we wouldn't have won.
For sure.
And even the Maryland game, we wouldn't have done what we did in the Maryland game in that 10 minutes. And I remember that game specifically, Tolle coming off the field and says, people think they can beat us, but they can't. You know, and we're just not going to give in. And so that 2-1 win up there, that really made us for the end of the season. Because when I saw the schedule and what our back end of the schedule looked like with all the travel, the number one goal was to just amass as many points as we could, knowing that come to the end of the back end of the schedule, it was going to balance out. Because it's just no way, I mean, without the Club de Leon game being canceled because of COVID, that would have been a really tough run. Mm-hmm. And it still was a tough run. Being on the road, I mean, we were like, I know I'm jumping ahead, but we were like, travel, especially when we took the sleeper bus. I mean, we were back on Sundays or Monday mornings, depending on when the game was. You're off on Tuesday. You're training Wednesday, Thursday. You're back traveling again on Thursday.
Yeah,
and we did that for 3 or 4 weeks, and that was really difficult. But that mid section prepared us for that.
So Matthew has the next one here titled Peaking. And I think the offense did kind of come back to form here. We had Club de Leon 1-1, which was a disappointing result, but then 3-0 LA Force, 2-0 Michigan Star. Screw you, Michigan. At Maryland Bobcats 1-1, then Gold Star 2-1, then Savannah 5-0. So it wasn't all rose petals and chocolates, but it was good.
It was also the LA and Michigan games, those were
complete performances, at least from our point of view.
Mostly complete performances. The Gold Star away game, we won 2-1 on an Olympico and another corner kick, but we created about
we had
10,000 chances.
Yeah, that game was Jesus really finding his rhythm and just missing that last little bit, but he was really on the game. And if things would have gone a little bit better for him, I mean, that game would have been, give him their penalty, give him that, but it could have been 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he comes out. This is soccer is a weird sport, right? He comes out first 3 minutes against Savannah and immediately does a little bit of magic and scores a goal, and that's just soccer is a funny game sometimes. But we were playing, and I use the word peaking, and I don't believe that you can have only one peak in a season. Right. I believe in a mid-season peak, and then other teams adjust and figure things out, and you have to grow again towards the end of the season. But this was a really good period, not just in terms of the grind, but we were creating chances against Michigan. We were creating chances against
something we hadn't done a lot of the season before.
Against LA. And
still allowing nothing. Throughout this whole season, we just continue to allow nothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes going entire games where you allow 1 or 2 shots on target the entire game.
Yeah, I think our expected goals for the season was 0.5.
On average?
On average. I think overall for the whole season was only 0.5.
I mean, that's exactly what our actual goals against was, too.
Yeah. So.
Very good.
Yeah.
And then we have the lull of, Matt calls this the lull of 4 matches. We actually struggled with what to call this, but the lull of 4 matches in 8 weeks, because it was 8 weeks and the schedule started getting weird and we had all the travel, but also you had all the postponements and this, that, and the other. And we played some friendlies in there, but we scored 4 goals in 4 games and we conceded 3 in 4 games, which I know 3 in 4 games is actually decent, but for us, that was bad. That was our worst stretch of the season.
Yeah.
And we 0-0, we lost 3-1. We won 3-1, lost 1-2, and then drew 0-0 in a game that we were lucky to get out of winning in San Diego. I would blame that one on travel a lot. But then, and I'll just skip right through that one because I don't think there's a lot to talk about unless you really want to talk about that one. We go into this period of time where at least Matthew and I are holy crap, are we going to get it back? Because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games left.
Because we had Savannah canceled or postponed for COVID. We had the Club de Leon situation, which I will just not even bother asking you a question on the record about. And so we came back. I mean, it's 4 games in 8 weeks. We come back with Gold Star, and I know the guys had had some struggles with COVID and practicing regularly and some stuff like that. So how do you reform a team that just had its first loss and then a game where it was the first time it was not the better team.
Yeah.
And then you get a 3-week layoff.
Yeah.
And you don't practice a little bit. And oh, by the way, here's our last game here's our last home game of the season, maybe.
Yeah, what was that period like? Those last 5 from Gold Star, Savannah, Flower City, Savannah, Club de Leon, leading into the playoffs.
I mean, you got to throw the COVID situation in there because we were nervous about that, right? Because first we thought it was just going to be one guy, 2, and then every 24 to 48 hours, somebody else. So then we just said we got to shut it down. So we literally shut it down for 5 days. We were all apart. I mean, you saw me walking a lot because I wasn't even going to the office. I never got COVID, but I was I'm just going to stay away from everybody because Chris and Omar got it. And so I was because we were thinking we were going to make a trip and it was going to be me and Jordan on the trip. So because that's how serious it was. I would say probably half the team. Yeah, probably half the team was had COVID. And so we're like, okay. And then we had to ease back into training. And then we put all the protocols into place. Like we weren't even like, they can only change in the locker room and come outside. And the weather was starting to change. It was cold. And so we're going through all of this stuff, right? So you go in the locker room, you get changed, and you're out. It had to be one at a time in the training room with mail. That was all that. We did that for, probably 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it really threw off the rhythm a lot.
Yeah, it really threw off the rhythm, right? And as soon as someone sneezed, go get a COVID test, right? Because we all were nervous, right? We were just nervous, and we're like, this has got to be out of us before the playoffs start. And that was really the focus with that, right? It's got to be. If anyone's feeling bad, don't come. I mean, it was like, even if you wake up, I got a little bit of nope, see ya. That's what it was, right? It was like we did that probably for 10 days.
And then you've got to go play a game against Gold Star, and where the team looked like. I mean, I think everyone watched that game, and we're just like, have these guys talked to me? No one's on the same page. It's a little bit lethargic, and
I would imagine a lot of guys who had just had COVID, their lungs were not feeling great running around on a soccer field.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, that was a tough time because we were also very close to the whole MLS thing.
Yeah.
Right? So that kind of threw a wrench into things in terms of just like refocusing, because this whole time, right, living in parallel worlds, right? On the inside, we knew what was coming, and we're still trying to finish off this season.
Right.
And then we get a wrench with the COVID thing, and then we're not playing as great as well as we would like to. So you got all these things going on, and all at one time. So it was not easy.
And we're back. So I want to ask you basically a question that we got from a lot of different people. And I think you just explained it, but I want to give you an opportunity to address it in case there's something else or something different. It says, what do you consider the biggest factor in the downturn in results during the kind of the final third of the season?
I mean, I don't think it's one thing. I think it was a lot of things. I think it was the travel. I think the fact that we had to deal with COVID. I think the fact that one of the most difficult things to do in sport is to be in front and stay in front. And that I think that's because what do you have tangible that you're reaching for besides, okay, if you're in second place and you're 3 points behind, okay, if we win this game, they lose. There are things that you can grasp on. Whereas for us, it got to the point, okay, when we're going to clinch, when we're going to win the season, we wanted that to be done, and so that was the thing that we were chasing. But I think it was just a combination of things, right? A lot of guys that were playing were banged up, because at that time Taylor wasn't back, Ethan was just coming back, Ale was just coming back, Colin had been in and he was out. So we didn't have a lot of depth. People think it's funny. People say, well, we have the deepest team in the league. We have a lot of bodies, but we don't necessarily have the deepest team in the league. And people argue that, but that's just the reality. We didn't. So we really, I think it's just a combination of factors.
With on this podcast, specifically on our season review, I think I took a stab at that kind of question, and we don't have the data, like, right? Y-Scout exists for you guys, and there's no public facing data for NISA, which we do get next year, which will be a lot more fun for the two of us.
If we can get someone to give us a Y-Scout login. I don't know if the podcast can pay for a Y-Scout login, Matthew.
But one of the things that struck me is, and in comparing the last part of the season, Gold Star until the playoff semifinal. Well, let the semifinal stay aside. Gold Star to Club de Leon, and an earlier part of the season where we were winning games, that 4 wins, 2 draws stretch, right after Taylor's injury, where we still got results done. It struck me that it's possible in the data that we were finishing a little bit hot. We were finishing some chances that over the course of those games maybe didn't bear out in the XG.
Yeah.
And maybe for other factors like our finishing like cooled off a little bit, or just our general like creation cooled off a little bit in general towards the end. And so like I'm wondering like is that what the data showed, or is it maybe more complicated than how I'm simplifying?
I mean, to simplify, we weren't creating as many chances, and we needed to score. We needed to create more chances. We weren't creating enough chances, and also to the real factor of when you play in a small league, other teams have time to figure things out, right? And so when you're playing a team 3, 4, 5 times a year, those teams are a little bit more prepared. And by the point that we got to that, when we had the downturn, is every single game was the final for the opponent.
Yeah.
They wanted to win. They wanted to knock us off. I mean, just hearing the celebration of LA Force when they won in the locker room was just, yeah. Anyway, but I remember sometime when we beat Detroit, we had the same reaction.
Yeah.
Right. It was the year for us.
Right.
I mean, it was the year for us, and I can't say it was a year for LA Force, but it sure was a big deal. And I don't blame them. We would have, if the tables were turned.
I mean, that was our
Yeah.
first loss in a
Yeah.
competitive match this season. Like I get it.
So, but I think all of it. I think really, it was just different. Like even when teams, as we know in the league, struggling off the field and all those things, they figure out how to get it right for our game.
Yeah.
And that was a good challenge for us, and which was really important.
I mean, like it's early in the process, both in roster building and in really familiarity with what happens next for us next year in MLS Next Pro. Do you see it being a little bit more of like a neutral case in terms of teams preparing for us, or like because a lot of these guys are going to be on 2 teams, there's only one other independent next year,
right?
Is it going to be like when you go to Chattanooga and you experience fans that you don't always get? Like there's some fans in MLS Next Pro that go to the games or whatever, but like this will be like the marquee away game.
That's the hope, right? That's the hope.
So
that we will
is
be.
it going to be kind of a similar challenge, you think?
Well,
or it would just be different because the goals are different?
I don't know, right? It's hard to say because we have to be honest, right? And this is not a knock against NISA, but players, opposing leagues don't really rate the league. And to be fair, when I went to Stumptown, I didn't know much about the league, besides it's a league. And when I was there and I saw the level of play and the individuals, especially at that time because Detroit was still in and who else was in? But there were other Cal was in. Yeah. So the level of player was really high. So I think the league, because of the issues that it has off the field, that taints the fact that there are good players in the league. So I don't know how much that will affect teams looking at, this team's just a NISA team.
They bring back 11 guys from the NISA team. Like
right,
whatever.
Yeah. So I'm just not sure what they will do. And plus, at the end of the day, MLS is MLS, right? And they believe they're the best.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. I mean, and we're going to be there. So that's good for us.
You talked about just now, and before we get back to our season grades, I know Matthew's going to do, but NISA play. Matthew and I had this argument this week, and you can refrain from answering if you don't like it. But how many are? I guess I'll ask you a two-part question, and again, you can refrain from answering either one because you may not want to answer it. But are there any players in NISA that weren't on Chattanooga Football Club last year that we're looking at for MLS Next Pro? That's the first part of the question. And the second part is, what would you put the over-under on? And this is just a random thought, but over-under on players that will make it from NISA if NISA dies. Maybe NISA doesn't die. Maybe NISA survives, in which case I think it probably lowers. But some players are going to make it in MLS Next Pro, I would assume, out of NISA. How many do you think there are? Is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 3? Is it 1? Like, outside of Chattanooga?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because I don't see the players enough. And for me, so go back to the scouting part. So when we're looking at players, something that we look at is the soccer education, where they've been, who's their coach, what kind of style. All these things matter to us when we're looking at the player, right? Because what we don't want is someone that's come from a very poor soccer education who been playing with teams all their lives that are polar opposite to what we are. Doesn't mean they can't change, but there's also a time, right? For us, there's time, right? It can't take them 6 months. They really, when we get out of preseason, they got to be on par at least, right? And then through the season, grow. So it's hard to say how many will make it. But the reality to making it to a higher league is your consistency. What are you willing to sacrifice? Do you really want to be a pro? Is the NISA style pro enough for you? Like, okay, yeah, we play 24 games and there's some uncertainty in certain things, and I don't always have to be on my game. And no player's going to say that.
Right.
But the reality is, those are the realities that you have to really want to make it, and you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice? How long am I willing to do it for? And if I get turned down 1,000,000 times, will I go for that 1,000,001 one time to give it another shot? And nobody has the answer to that. But I think there's players in the league, but are there players in the league that really want to be pro? I watched a video last night of Kobe Bryant, and he was talking about all the way back to high school. Like, he realized that the players that he was playing against weren't up at 5 a.m. And at 5 a.m. in high school, if the coach wasn't available, he was playing in the gym with the janitor. This is high school. Then he said he realized when he got to be a pro that some of the guys basically would still be out at 5 a.m., but he'd be in the gym. So over the course of time, he just began to separate himself. And that's going to take the commitment to get to that level, because MLS Pro, right, they have the whole world at their disposal. So if player playing right back in NISA, so now you're competing against right back in USL Championship, right back in MLS Pro, right back in USL 1, right back in MLS, right back in college, right back in Spain, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So they have it at their disposal. If they decide they want to spend the money, they can spend the money. So that's just the road. So what are you willing to do to make sure you get there? And it's consistency in your work and your preparation.
I hope there's somebody out there listening that is a young player, because I feel like that's like the exact roadmap. Matthew, take us through season grades.
Yeah, so we've done this now. We went through some of your principles and how you want your teams to play, both when you were first hired, and then we kind of like relitigated a little bit last year at the end of the season. So I'm just going to remind listeners.
And feel free to change any of these if you feel like they're
if you've
if
updated your website. We did not update the show doc. Like, play consistently in the reactionary period. When you lose the ball, how quickly can you win it back? How quickly can you put the other team under pressure after you win it back? We want to be ball dominant, back-breaking, and relentless. Never give the other team hope. Never let them think they have a chance to play. And then general principles are being proactive, attack-minded, defensively organized, and dominant on both sides of the ball. And last year, we came up with some categories based on those principles to kind of grade, you grade kind of yourself and the group that we put together in terms of possession, both offensive and defensive, chance creation, both offensive and defensive, set pieces, transition, and then just general like dominance, the killing hope. And I want to do it again.
Perfect.
So this season, offensive possession, and like maybe we can start with the just general possession and then do a defensive category, and we'll let you define this how you want to, but possession.
B minus.
Okay.
I don't think we were quite there. I don't think we were quite there. But there's a lot of factors in there from the perspective of kind of the type of player. We changed our profile of players a little bit, But
What we started playing actual defenders.
yeah,
They're better at defending, but not always as good on the ball.
Do you think? So I'm remembering. I went back and listened to. We both listened to your interview last year, and one of the things you said was our passing accuracy was 85%, I think, last year, and you wanted it to become 90% because that one little change probably got us an extra shot, and it got the opposition one less shot as well. And I'm curious if you remember what our passing accuracy was for the season.
I don't remember, but I'm not sure it'll be as high as it was last year.
Okay.
I'm not sure, again, because we just did it a little bit different.
Yeah.
And we had different players.
I mean, we definitely went long more often this season. Like, I think everyone that remembers the season like knows that like occasionally we just put it in behind and let guys run.
Yeah.
Well, and I think something that you said last year was what we were most concerned about is that we didn't have to defend for long periods of time.
Yeah.
And then you made the joke, we're not playing any defenders. We're playing one defender and three midfielders.
Yeah.
And in defense. And like it's obviously there's a shred of truth to that joke. Like, you know, the guys obviously we kept the ball really well last year. But sometimes we had to keep the ball well so that they couldn't have the ball so that, you know, and I feel like maybe this year you just gave us a B-, but I feel like we were a little more balanced, at least offensive versus defensive, not possession-wise maybe, but like last year I felt like we were a really good offensive team or even a good offensive team and kind of an average defensive team.
Yeah, no doubt, because last year toward the end of the season we were bringing up easy goals. I was concerned going into the playoffs about that. But this year I was never once concerned about giving up goals. I mean, obviously you have Tolley there. That's, you know, Aiden was fantastic. JP did a great job all year, so had some consistency there, which was good. But yeah, I that was not a worry.
Yeah, this is a very different team.
Yeah, and we talk about this on this podcast, and I think you agree with this. Like personnel is policy. Like those are choices that we made.
Yeah,
trade-offs that we made because it would help us give us the best chance of achieving.
And
what we could.
You know, going forward, I mean, we're changing the profile a little bit in some areas. We want to be a little bit more athletic because the league is more athletic.
Right.
So we want to add some things that will make us a little bit more unpredictable. And we believe that if it's athleticism with speed or athleticism with size. So, I told Chris and Omar, I said, this hurts my heart to say that, but we got to look at athleticism, and I hate to look at that. I mean,
that's antithetical to rod ball, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I just want... But we're looking at it, but we want to make sure that it ties into our technique, insight, and then...
You still have to be able to play.
Yes. Yeah. A non-starter is technique. So doesn't matter what a player has. If he doesn't have technique, there's not even a conversation. So that's like still paramount. But yeah, we're going to tweak some things a little bit.
There we had a listener question specifically. I think that person went back through and listened. I think it was Jim Hicks. Went back through and listened and asked specifically about like player profiles. Like, do you want to, aside from maybe athleticism?
I can read it to you right now.
Okay.
You talked last offseason, this is Jim Hicks, about changing the profile of certain player positions, especially in defense and goalkeeper, you've already mentioned this one, in order to get better at those positions. In order to be competitive in this new league, in being MLS Next Pro, what has changed in some of the player profiles we are using this offseason? So he's wondering any specifics you're willing to share on how you want.
Yeah, I think for us is the athleticism is important. It's not a deciding factor by no means, but it needs to be part of our scouting process. So that's
maybe more so than it used to be.
Yeah, maybe more so than it used to be. But you know, at least I can take solace in the fact that Pep Guardiola said the same thing. So I'm okay with that.
Pep's also started playing Rod 4 center backs across the back line.
Don't put it past me.
Well, you played 3. Okay, so you and Chris told me, both of you made fun of me because I was like, you're playing a midfielder in Colin Stripling in center back last year. And then Chris was like, seems like a pretty good center back, huh? Basically, like, you know, basically making fun of me saying he's not really a midfielder anymore. And pretty clearly, like we played, I shouldn't say pretty clearly. I would argue we played 4 center backs in our offense. JP's not a center back, but Richard is a converted center back.
But JP, when he was in Mexico, played center back.
No
Okay,
kidding.
I did not know that. I did so even more so. So yeah, I would argue that like it wouldn't be as big a change for you than maybe people would think.
Yes,
because what you care about, and I think what Pep, and correct me if you think this is wrong, but what Pep cares about is technical ability. John Stones playing center back or playing attacking midfielder or some combo of the two things at the same time is different than, I don't know, whoever is playing in random Italian Serie A game who can't pass the ball, can only defend. Like it's a whole different.
Yeah, no, it's for us so when we talk about tweaking that profile, all we're talking about is the nuance, because the nuance of being a hybrid player, because that's what we look for. We look for hybrid players. We're not looking outside of goalkeeper. And probably that's about it.
Yeah.
That would not be a hybrid player, that they could do multiple jobs in a game for extended periods of time.
I don't know. I had a training session with John Burke this morning. He's starting to strike a ball pretty well, Coach. He's out working that left foot a little bit, but he's going to be competing for those striker minutes in late in games. Just kidding.
Can you imagine, though?
I was making fun of him this morning. I was telling him he needed to work on his left foot so he could.
What about defensive possession? Taking possession away from the opposition.
I thought that was pretty good. I mean, I thought we used the ball in sort of a rest defense. We did that more sometimes. We had no plans to go anywhere. But
the horseshoe.
Yeah, but sometimes though we changed a little bit. We were trying to make the opponent come and press us, so that we would have more space to play.
Is that different this year?
Yeah, way different than this year.
Because I felt like it was.
Yeah, it was way different this year, and obviously that comes from making, because like I said early on, like I really watch games not worried about the score. I want to know the score before I watch the game,
right?
Because I want to see the trends of what's important in the game, that the teams that are winning consistently at a high rate, and then figure out how to incorporate those into what we do. Because at the end of the day, it's all about winning at our level. So whatever tweaks we need to make to win, that's what we want to do.
So I'm going to take a little side tangent. Well, first of all, what would you give the grade on that? On our defensive possession, or using possession to not score, but to keep the other team from having the ball?
I would say B+, because toward the end of the season, we really were focusing on that, knowing that we won the league, we're in the playoffs, and we knew we might need it in the playoffs. So we actually made that. We were intentional about that, especially toward the latter half of the season.
Side note tangent here, because you mentioned something that both Matt and I want to talk about. Talk to me about the press and how you think about pressing.
It's like specifically like winning the ball back as fast as possible so you can have the ball again.
Well, you guys know how important I think possession is. It's kind of 1 and 1A. That's how close they are. So I think it's vital. I don't think it was great this year. I think at the beginning of the season it was really good, but as the season went on, be fair to the teams, they started doing some unorthodox things that would overload us in certain areas that made it difficult to press. We had to be a little bit more passive.
Yeah.
And
just wait for them to come to us.
And we're going to fix that, though, because I don't want to be passive.
If there's anything we know, and using your words, I think I'm going to try to quote you. You said, even if I didn't think this was the best way to win, it's about control for me,
yes.
And I'm not letting anything out of my control. So
right.
Even if I didn't think it was the best way to win, it would be the way I want to win.
Yes, exactly.
So you're going to control. We're going to control.
So a letter grade for
the press.
Yeah.
I'd probably say C+.
Okay, let's move to chance creation. Us creating chances.
I mean, considering that our expected goals for the season is only 1.5 or so, and we want to be at least 2 or 2.5. And, we look at all the data, like we need, we're talking 10, our attacking, our final third entries were on par, were really good. But box entries were low, which leads to low shot creation. Lower than if we're getting in the final third 70 times a game, we got to be in the box at least 25.
Yeah.
And sometimes we weren't.
So,
and then we need around 10 shots inside the box.
I think you said last year on the podcast 9 shots inside the box,
and
it could update.
And 2.25 XG is what you wanted per game.
But like last year we were at then we were at 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Do you know where we were roughly this year?
I don't know, but Chris does, I'm sure.
We're gonna have to have him on this podcast and grill. We're gonna go back and listen to this and do all the things. Send him a list. But these are all the things we want to know, Chris.
Yeah, he knows because we were looking at spreadsheets today. He got spreadsheets galore.
Side note, you said we were at 1.5 XG on average
per
in
game.
the season. That's literally basically our goal output as well.
Okay.
So it's
pretty close.
It's honestly nice not to come in under.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes you generate.
you never want to come in under.
But like sometimes you generate not just the final. Take out the final even. Sometimes you generate like over a season, and you have or your time at Stumptown where you have a converted right back playing striker, and like it's hard for that guy to get shots at the rate a striker would get, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess that was the second part with Travis Ward playing striker.
Yeah.
Like. When you're 4 goals under on the year, where you want to be, it's not all Travis's fault. Like he's doing a job, right? But that's not the ideal thing. So I think there's a positive to coming in even with your expected goals.
Yeah, I think so, right? I think so, but I think for us, because here's the thing with data, right? I mean, obviously we're clearly a club that embraces data. Data shows us the patterns and the things that we think are going to make us successful. But then we also need to recognize there are guys that just make your team better that don't fit into the statistical categories or the data categories. They have something that's intangible that makes your team better that will perhaps affect that expected goals or expect that expected goals against that they never show up in any data or any stats, right? So to not come under, but we were always worried that it was too low and we were going to get in a one-off and that was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. But saying that, we got into a one-off and it wasn't a problem. It was just
the ball didn't bounce.
The ball didn't go in.
Like 2 inches either way. We're talking about like
2 inches,
a 4 or a 6-0 game.
Matthew, 2 inches cumulative, a half inch for each of the 4 to hit the bar. And
because when you look at that game, right, those plays fell to the guys that you want them to fall to. So that's even like more to say, we did all the right things and it just wasn't our day, but we have to make it our day.
Yeah.
Somehow we've got to figure that out and make it our day.
So this is an anonymous question. The person did not sign there, but it said, we know CFC prioritizes data, which we're talking about right now. How common is that in lower division soccer today, especially in the U.S.?
I don't know what everybody else does. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know what they do because we just do our thing. But I think I shared before in the podcast, I got into data like in 2010, just using a pad and I was watching Champions League with Barca and Celtic, I think that's when it was. So this is a lot of years ago. And I had a pad, I had a piece of paper and a pad, but I was only tracking like
quadrants, right?
Yeah. I was only...
So you mentioned this in the last pod.
I was only tracking like how many times players took 1 touch, 2 touch, or more than 2 touch. And then I started tracking what we call the box cross. So that space between the corner of the box and the 6-yard box. Those became like, we started to see that's where most of the goals were, or the high level chances were coming from. Mm-hmm. And so then that evolved and evolved and evolved. And then Chris just blew it out of the water. So, we really believe in it. We really do it. We use it for scouting. Is it the be all end all? No. But is it important for us? Yes. And I don't know like I said, I don't know. I have seen I know I know Savannah, they use GPS like we do. So that was nice to see they were doing that. And to be fair, most of the other teams in our league probably just can't afford it because it costs money.
Yeah.
You know, to be on Y-Scout is not cheap. To use GPS is not cheap. So, you know, we're thankful to the club for investing in that because that's really made a difference for us.
Thank you. Perfect. So back to chance creation. What would you give us a grade? I know you said 1.5 is lower than you want to be. What letter grade is that?
Probably C.
How about limiting chances on the defensive side?
That's an A.
That's pretty good this year.
Yeah.
we were at that 0.5, right at that 0.5. It was 0.52, I think, or 0.49. What were we? Do you remember what it was for the season?
16 goals. Or if you just take the league, it's 12 goals in 24 games. So then that's 0.5 on the money.
And then when you analyze the goals, right? And
we did.
Yeah, and you look at the goals, right? How many goals are really earned, right? How many goals that wasn't caused by us?
4.
Right.
3.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah. So that's like really.
When you and I did the math, it was 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm giving Manny Gonzalez the banger. Savannah, I'm giving Savannah the goal, the first goal they scored.
It was a nice
on
work.
the
Nice
road.
goal,
yeah.
I'm annoyed that like we kind of switched off and like let them get too deep.
Yeah.
But it's good.
It's good. The LA goal that they tied us on.
That was a good goal. Yeah.
First good goal of the year.
Yeah, that was the first one. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That might be it.
It's a question if you count Maryland away in the game we came back in. Do you count that one as a good goal or a mistake? Or
Was that the one that
foul?
was that the one that
Colin and
Colin
Jean
gets-
got like pushed
Colin
together.
gets fouled.
Yeah,
and,
I wouldn't
like,
give that a good goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it's 3 out of
3.
out of 16
Yeah.
that we either had individual errors or something that we caused that we should have.
Well, if you're going to 16, then you've got
No, you mean 12?
Yeah,
You think
3 out
12?
of 3 out of 12. Let's not worry about the Independent Cup or the Open Cup.
Yeah.
Deal.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I would, and no offense, Coach, you can tell me if you feel differently, but I would caution listeners not to think that was going to be a repeatable possibility at any league.
Anything's possible.
Okay, I
let's
love it.
go.
I love it.
Let's move on to offensive set pieces. This includes being able to draw penalties, taking the penalties, direct free kicks,
Corners.
activity around, like not just shooting on goal.
Long
immediately.
throws, new
Corners.
thing for a
I'm
Rob
a-
coach team that I've seen. Long throws.
I'm a long throw kind of guy, and I knew that the season was different for you.
The first time it happened.
When you set Aiden forward for a long throw, and like kind of early in the season, I was like, yes, let's do this.
He grabbed him by the collar with both hands, and he went, long throw! And he shook me. So what kind of grade would you give to our overall set pieces on offensively?
I thought they started good. I think we went through a lull, right?
For sure.
We went through a lull because, again, right, small league, teams watch.
Teams figured it out.
Teams figured it out. So and then when they really started figuring it out, we're in that place where we didn't have time to train. So we usually dedicate a day, we dedicate time for set pieces, and we wanted to implement some new ones, but we just didn't have the time to implement some new ones. And so I think that affected it, but I'm pleased with the set pieces overall. I mean, the creativity, the either creating an opportunity to score or keeping the ball. I think both those were good, because what we recognize is that, like, by the data, people get fooled that corners are goal scoring opportunities. They're not. The data doesn't show that. So there's just certain things that we just kind of simply rely on the data, right? Now, if we had 5 guys that were 6'5", that'd be a different story, right?
I was going to say we scored 8 corners and we earned an additional PK.
Yeah.
From a corner this year.
8 goals on set piece. So when we classified stuff,
that's corners alone.
direct.
That is corners alone.
But my point
both
is,
short and long.
When we used corners, like if it recycled off of a corner, but the center backs were still up, we considered that still a corner.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
because that was our own, like, when the center backs leave, it's no longer a corner, even if you're still playing with it.
Right. Yeah.
But if the center backs are still up, we considered, even if it was on a recycle, we considered that a corner.
Yeah.
Just so you know how we classified that.
We scored 13 set pieces this year, including direct free kicks.
I mean,
and not including penalties.
13 out of 49 goals. That's a good percentage.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
probably an
what grade would you give it?
A minus. Or would you take it?
I'll be nice to
leave
Chris.
it?
I'll give him an A, because he would. he loves set pieces. If we gave him the whole week, he'd do them all week. So I'm gonna be nice to Chris and give him an A.
Chris, you get this hour at the end of practice. All right.
This is going to be an A with an asterisk, just letting you know. What about defensive set pieces? Because outside of penalties, which
Yeah, we were good. I mean,
I don't think we gave up a single one.
yeah, we were good. I mean, look,
Something that you said we needed to get better on last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the truth, right? Aiden's a smart defender, but he's really good in the air for his size. And when Colin was on, I mean, just gave us more size. Rich is dominant, and obviously Tully.
We should call him the salmon. He would just come out of the mess of people about a foot above everyone else.
And Alex is beyond his level for his size. And something I was pleased like with Luis this year, because at stump down, the guy wouldn't jump and head the ball for anybody. But now having this year, he was challenging for the ball. So, hey, good for Luis.
That counts. So, but really there, we added a goalkeeper that dominated his box,
Yeah, I can't
right?
forget about that.
John absolutely dominated his box, right? But we added a goalkeeper and 2 center backs. But everybody else, okay, I'm not trying to take anything away from Luis, but like the size-wise, like really it's 3 players that took us from probably that being, I would argue, our weakest spot defensively.
It was nervy. It was nervy last year on corners.
Like we didn't always concede, but I was terrified we were going to concede every one.
Yeah, they were nervy all the time.
And we came into playing the Michigan Stars for the first time in our history playing the Michigan Stars, and I was like, I'm not worried about them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying they won't be good or they couldn't score,
Sure, yeah.
but I'm not, like, every set piece the Michigan Stars got in the history of me watching, whether it's been you or Peter Fuller, I've been like, oh my God, they're going to score.
Yeah.
Because they're so big and so physical.
Yeah.
But this year we were as big and as physical as long as Colin was on the field. It changed a little bit with...
I mean, when we were at our healthiest, and you had Colin, you had Tolley, you had Aiden, Jesus, even Taylor, even though he's not great in the air, but he's brave. He's not going to not shy away from it. It's not his game, nor do I expect it to be his game. But just those guys, I mean, Taylor's, 6'3", probably? Yeah. You know, Tully's his size, Colin's 6'2", in that range. So, I mean, he gave us a lot of size. So,
and then you had Jean going up doing football moves over top of people.
I mean, but
but we knew that was coming. You knew that was coming.
He made us very, very secure. So when you have that security, the players that are in front of him, just go for it. Right? Yeah. You're less protecting because you know if you don't get it, you got somebody else back there that will.
Yeah. I assume it's an A.
Yeah.
Transition.
Offensively.
I'll give it a B because what we were never built for is like we try to progress to the attacking half of the field very quickly. But we weren't built to be able to go end to end consistently, right? At some point in time, we have to say, let's put a foot on it, let's get control of the ball.
Yeah.
Because the reality is even the bottom teams in some areas were more athletic in terms of speed than us.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that we try to make that not a factor. So sometimes when we could have gone, we didn't go because we just didn't, because it's hard to regain control. And if it comes to track meet, then we're not going to win.
That's
the track
not our
meet.
game.
Yeah, it's not our game. Yeah.
What do you think? Go ahead. Sorry.
I would say defensive transition.
I thought defensive transition was good. I mean, we found ourselves never to worry about guys getting back behind the ball. Never. Guys put the work in, even when they were tired. They put the work in. So yeah, it was good for us. So I would give that a B+ probably.
We have the most rod category of all time. This is I think we could answer or do all of these for everybody, but this is the one literally named after you, Killing Hope. Something you said on our very first podcast. How do you feel like we were in Killing Hope this year?
I think we did it in a different way this year. I think we did it like how we presented ourselves, like in the warm-up, how we presented ourselves against the opponent in terms of prior to the game or how we were before the game. All that has an effect on the mentality. I think we exuded confidence with being humble. And I think those things were really important. could we killed off a few more games? But I think we did a pretty good job, and the other things made us kill hope a lot. It really did, right? It really did, and that's important for professional sports, because every single player at any level of professional sports is a good player, and every single player at the professional level thinks they're a great player.
Yeah,
which is fine. I mean,
you need it.
If you don't bet on yourself, who's going to bet on you, right? So, I think to kill hope is like, it's so important, and it might only be for 10 minutes, like in the Maryland game when we came back and won that 2-1, but that changes the whole game.
Right.
So I felt it was good overall. I would give it probably a solid B, because I think we could have been clinical in some areas and finished off the game. But see, you have to go back and you look at the defensive, because for me, I look at killing hope from the offensive side. But when you look, I can't remember the game, it was the Michigan game, where Rich put in 2 blocks. Somebody else put a block in. I mean, and Michigan thought they were back in. I think it came after Gene had made the penalty save. And it's like, that's killing hope. It's like, there's no way through, right? So I would definitely give it a solid B for sure.
I remember Aiden's goal line clearance when we were up 2-0 against Albion at home.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Because that was the best chance we've conceded all season.
Yeah.
In terms of one particular chance.
Yeah.
And he was there to clear it off the line. Yeah.
Mick's heard that little honk. What about overall season grade?
I'd have to only give it a B, just because we didn't win, and we really wanted to.
We wanted to win.
It's really hard, right?
Yeah.
Because look, you go almost a year without losing, right? In the regular season, you lead the league from start to finish. You get national and international media because you're doing what you're doing. It's kind of hard to grade it, because it's really 2 seasons. It's the playoffs season and it's the regular season. If you said to any team, right, do you want to be dominant for 24 games? Yes, you would want to be dominant for 24 games. So I think that I would give it a B, because we didn't win, because we set out to win it, right? We set out to win it. If we'd won it, I give it an A, obviously, because we do the double, right?
Right.
But to win the regular season is really a big deal, especially in a single table league.
Yeah.
Right? Unlike, when you have East and West Conference, or, basketball, where you have the divisions and all that. That doesn't carry the same weight, but being in a single table league and to go from start to finish, that's tough to do.
Yeah.
It's really tough to do, So I would give it a B, only a B, because we didn't win.
Here's an interesting, I think, wrinkle on that. What would you think was the fulfillment of our team potential versus so how much potential did we achieve as a collective group, and how much was there still that's unachieved?
I'd say there's a lot unachieved, because what I will say, there were very few games where we put it all together, right? Where we're just dominant in every category, and we wanted to be dominant in every category. So I think there was a lot more. I think there's a lot more to achieve, to go after, because like the Maryland game, that 10 minutes of stretch is like, well, you just can't touch us at this level, and we wanted to do more of that. And we didn't do enough of that. The beat of beating Albion there, and that first time we played them out there, the game was done in 25 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And so...
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that was...
I enjoyed that one.
Yeah. And then, the LA Force game, right? Same thing here. Those were moments of why you're on the field kind of feeling, right? But in the end, we just didn't get it done, so...
Right.
I think there's still more to fulfill.
I've got a 7:20 hard out, which is 16 minutes from now.
Okay, perfect.
Are you good with that?
I'm good, yeah.
Cool. Let's blow through some listener questions here. Are you good with that, Matthew?
Yeah, I'm good.
Go to that first one.
So, how do you see the World Cup coming in 2026 changing the landscape of American soccer? And specifically, there's a couple parts here. Specifically, how does it relate to Chattanooga the city, Chattanooga the club, MLS Next Pro, or lower divisions in general, and then Rod Underwood personally?
I see. Look, I was around in '94, right? So I was there. I was in my 20s. I'm trying to remember exactly, so long ago.
A little baby Rod.
I was in my 20s, right? And, I remember teams coming to, like, I was living in Albuquerque at the time. So teams coming to get altitude training because, Albuquerque's a mile high, right? So teams coming in, and I remember, like, recording all the games on VHS on my
Love it.
because the games were all that. So I'm recording all of my games on VHS because I'm coaching and busy all the time, so I didn't get a chance to watch them all live. But it was game changer. It was a absolute game changer, and I see it even more now because we have better infrastructure. We have more dollars behind the game. We have more interest behind the game. So I think all those things are really very good. I think it'll be a game changer for us. I don't know what that game changing looks like. Will it make America a top 10 regular to win the World Cup? I don't know. I mean, that's just a different level. I don't know about that. I'm not saying that it won't happen, but yeah, I think it'll pique the interest. Because I have a master's in sports leadership, and we did a lot of study on like these big tournaments, right? It's all about how long do they last? How long does that last? But we have Olympics, Copa, and World Cup. We have a huge chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zach Taylor and Vernon, for that question. What was your key takeaway from the entire body of work this season? And how do we maintain it and perhaps improve upon it in the upcoming season? And that's Bill, CFC Gooner 41 on Twitter.
Nothing on the field. It was the culture that we built. Having to do the exit meetings and not bringing some players back is worse than losing. And because of the culture that we built in the club of walking alongside these players, we had some highs, right? Guys having babies and really enjoying that. Guys going through some difficulties that we walk through with them. Mm-hmm. And you've built these relationships that are really special. And so just the culture that we built, the locker room was really very special. And I don't know, it'll be hard to get it. It'll be hard to get to that level again, but I hope we do. But yeah, just building the culture of the connectivity of the group.
Is there anything that you challenged the team to do? It's another question from Bill, but that never transpired on the field.
No. They gave their all. They accomplished. Could I ask any more? I can't really ask any more. Could I? I could ask more, like, let's win the semifinal and get to the final. But you don't control that, right? So the things that we control the hard work. We worked hard in the semifinal, chance creation, all those things that we controlled, and we did that. So there's not more I would ask from the guys.
If there was the question is Jonathan Hunter, what was the season's high water mark on the field? I want to take that and kind of change it a little bit to be what game this season was the most complete performance, the most like what you want CFC to be performance on the field.
Birmingham that's the best I ever saw Luis play in my life. Calling it come back from his back injury and played every minute of the game until we went to PKs. Totally was dominant.
Gene was incredible.
He was so good.
Aiden had a lot to prove because he had been on trial at Birmingham, and they didn't pick him. So he had a lot to prove, and he played well. Taylor was lights out. I mean, he was absolutely lights out. Rich was rich. Alex was yeah. I mean, that was probably our best. And I can say that because I went back and watched that about a week or so ago. Because Gene said, Gene said to me, whenever I feel like we might not be able to get to the level, I'll go back and I watch the Birmingham game and see, wow, we were really good. So I went back and watched the game.
Yeah.
And that was probably, for me, that was probably the best, the most complete.
I love that. I think that game was interesting because that was a higher level, and a lot of our guys stepped up and showed they could do it at a higher level as well. Like, yeah, that was a really fun game.
Next question comes from a Twitter account called NextPro News,
Which is a weird Twitter follow. NextPro News.
Yes.
Tell us your real name.
but the question, and you've kind of touched on a little bit of this, but if this will allow you to go a little bit deeper if you want to, what do you expect roster construction to look like, or maybe like what's the goal for MLS Next Pro compared to how we built in NISA?
We'll build the same way. We won't. I mean, we'll build the same way. We will build that we find the best player for what we can afford, and that's how we'll build again. Yeah. No
Extra emphasis on like if the player is 18, so they retain like value or something like that.
Force. In some cases, we are. We would say we do want to have players that we would love to get into the transfer business, right? Outwardly, we would love to get into the transfer business, and that will have an effect on how we maybe bring certain players, but it still won't be age restricted, because what we're doing is we are creating profiles of MLS players and what teams are paying for certain types of players, and that will affect how we recruit, but they still have to be the kind of player that we want.
And I guess we were already like looking for that 18, 19-year-old.
Yeah, that's never going to change.
And like we were already doing that even this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually skip because the next question I think you just answered, which is what is the unique challenges and benefits? Sorry, Mix is really loving sleeping on you over there. What unique challenges and benefits exist for us now in squad building for Next Pro as opposed to NISA, which is like that, right? That you can legitimately build for a whole league that's on top of you.
Yeah.
Us not affiliated with anybody, but the ability to sell to an entire league where you can look at profiles in that league and say, like, these are the types of players. Is that a fair answer to that question?
Yep, it is. Yep.
What about in terms of the international market, like having the ability to do so in the first place?
Having a league that can qualify for P1 visas? Is that what you're talking about?
We'll be lively for sure. We want to be lively. I mean, it's because again, right? Those players fit the model MLS, right?
And how you like to play.
And how we like to play. Yeah.
I couldn't leave just MLS on that one. So Jeff Clymer asked, and he was that last question as well. He said, will our roster look considerably different than other teams in Next Pro, considering we, and I guess the Carolina Core, are independent compared to a developmental team that serves an MLS D1 team?
It's team by team, right? I mean, Huntsville will probably build similar to us with some tweaks because they're connected to Nashville. Other teams, I just don't know, right? You don't know what their plan is, right?
You can see what they did this year, but not necessarily if it's going to change. Like I think like Columbus 2 and Crown Legacy in Charlotte.
Yeah, they go for it. Yeah,
they went for it, but they built a lot more like we might hopefully try to go about doing it.
Right, exactly.
With a lot more like pro-aged guys as opposed to like and those are also, I guess, Columbus is a small market, so like their academy is not always been super productive.
They've got to work
like
at
some
it.
Places.
They've got to work at it for sure, but they do a good job at it. Columbus does a good job.
And like I think I remember, what was it? They had a guy who's a regular now, like dual national U.S. Maybe Aiden Morris, and like they plucked him right out of like the Crew 2 team.
That's correct.
Right before the playoffs because of some sort of injury.
Mm-hmm.
Went out there, crushed it. They won. It was like 2 years ago, something like that. So like there's definitely the players are out there.
Yeah.
Does that? I mean, I think we would agree that like the level is going to be higher.
Yes.
Than in NISA. And maybe just like overall, and then definitely the top end level is going to be higher.
Yeah.
So, how, I guess I'm adding a question in here. Like, do we also have to now like go there and also be that. Like, right, we've got, like, our top level's got to go higher,
Yeah.
and then our floor also has to rise.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what we talk about all the time is, right? And it's just as a club in general, right? We want to make sure we have the right mindset. And we all know, right, you can get clouded by the situations you've been in. And so it's hard to see through the cloud. But what we want to make sure of is that we don't overestimate the level of player that we have. And we want to make sure that we can compete at MLS Next Pro. And we want to make sure that as you said, our bottom end is higher, because we need that, right? We were able to get away with some things on the lower end because at the end of the day, you get to the end of the roster in NISA and you're out of money. And so you just have to do what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is going to be fun. I mean, I'm really excited about building a team and competing with other clubs who are thinking about very similar things, winning, moving players, developing players, because we want to win and develop. We don't want to develop or win. We want to do both.
What does success look like for you in MLS Next Pro for CFC? 'Cause win and develop, but like, is there, like, do we have any internal targets that you're willing to share now, or is it too early for that?
My mind's already made up, but I'd rather not share.
Beautiful. I think the people can take enough from that. Matthew, you want to finish it up there?
Yeah. For Next Pro News, you specifically asked a question about if Coach had any thoughts about a hypothetical rivalry matchup.
That's true. Yeah.
And with Huntsville City, and I realized that we played them in preseason this year. But I'm not going to ask that question. Number one, because this podcast only recognizes
Rocket City United. And Huntsville will forever be Rocket City United to us. We only recognize.
Which, by the way, is probably the start of a good rivalry on our end, at least.
They would have to have people that care about them in order for it to be a rivalry. All right. Well, Coach, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Great time as always.
I hope you have a wonderful. I feel like last season we asked you what you were going to do with your off time, and you were like, "Well, I'll do a little soccer stuff, but I'm hoping to take some time off." I have a feeling you're not going to be taking a lot of time off, a lot of days not working.
No. Yeah. No. It's going to be full bore, right? All the time. It's funny because my wife, my youngest daughter, she was like, "Yeah, Dad's coming home, and she's going to be taking me to do all these things." She goes, "Your dad's going to work more now than he did last year because there's a lot more things going on." And she goes, "Really?"
So you take? Do you have any vacations planned?
Yeah, we'll do some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we'll do some stuff.
Any particular destination you're ready for?
The positive is, and she's going to hate this, we're not going back to Disney, so that's good.
I feel like there's probably a lot of young parents listening to this that agree with that. Matthew, thank you for joining me. Mix, you were a good boy today. Thank you again, Coach, and we'll catch up with listeners and viewers soon. Peace.